Picture this. You're on a mission, alone, in the jungle, in the middle of the night, crouched in a muddy ditch just outside a cartel-owned hideout. You're not hunting a person, though. You're there to listen. Your goal is to connect to and capture traffic from a Wi-Fi access point buried deep in hostile enemy territory. Why? Because a confidential human source told you that an important transaction would be occurring that night, and you need to snag the details. You open up your backpack, pull out your antenna and packet-sniffing hardware, and wait. After what seems like a lifetime, Wireshark finally lights up, and you see the connection initiate. You redirect and start intercepting the traffic, gathering the data you need for your team. You've pulled it off. Mission accomplished. What did it take to make this happen, though? It's not just your willingness to crawl through the jungle with network capture hardware. Long before you got to that stage, it took months of work building up relationships, earning trust, establishing communication, and persuading someone to take the action you wanted, giving you the info you needed on where the hidden site was located. That's the real skill, finding a way to get the opportunity to capture the traffic in the first place. And that skill is not easy. But whether you're crawling through the jungle or under the floor of a corporate data center running network cables, the skill to get someone to trust you and take action is the same skill that can help you in the corporate world. No matter who you are, communication, persuasion, and knowing how to explain things clearly can be the critical difference between the failure of your team and the ability to convince your organization to make smart security decisions, drive change, and improve their security. You may think this is a far-fetched comparison, but it's actually not. And in this episode, you're going to hear why. This week, we sit down with Rich Greene, a former Green Beret and Special Forces Comm Sergeant in Advanced Special Operations Tactics, who's now turned into a cybersecurity expert and SANS instructor. Rich has quite the past. As you'll hear, he's done things very similar to the scenario that I just talked about, and he's learned some very interesting lessons and skills from it. In this episode, which is a bit of a diversion from the beaten path of our normal technical content, Rich shares how the art of human connection, persuasion, and now teaching others has changed his life, and how building those skills can change yours as well. Whether you're trying to secure a network or change policy, this episode is about a core truth, and that is you can't fix a problem if you can't clearly communicate where the problem is and what needs to happen to fix it. So with that in mind, let's get into it. I'm John Hubbard, and this is Blueprint. Stay with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Rich Greene. Well, my background, it's like a great story. If you were just to imagine kind of sitting back and watching through HBO or reading a great thriller novel by any author you enjoy. If we go back, spent 20 years in the United States Army. Over half of that time was with the United States Army Special Forces. And then I got out. I became a DoD contractor as an instructor for the DoD as well, teaching a topic we'll talk about here shortly, which will be super fun and exciting. And it kind of molded into my ability to weasel my way into the amazing organization that is SANS, more on the sales side. And then I kind of pivoted over to where I'm also now an instructor for SANS, teaching SEC301. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like my life and journey has been all over the place. I have very few years alive on Earth, but it's been a wild, crazy almost 42 years.
It sounds like, and I know from having talked to you previously that you have an incredible story. From the kind of earlier years when you were working in the Army and Special Forces, that was not a cyber job, right? Just to kind of paint the picture here, right? You, like many of us, started in something that was completely different. Could you give us a little picture, at least to your ability, of what you did back then?
No, absolutely. So if we go all the way back, and we're going back in the way back machine. I actually joined the Army as a 31 Romeo, which that series doesn't exist in the military anymore. It was a multi-channel transmissions systems operator maintainer. That's a really, really long run of words to say I just worked with FM radios. Like frequency hopping radios is kind of what I did. So what we would do is we would go out ahead of advancing units in the military. So when we're deployed, we would set up the small little area. And as units came through, we would do ComSec changeovers, make sure the radios were set up correctly, just so that when they went forward, they're fine. And we just kind of leapfrogged all the way through there. So I was a radio guy, FM radios. From there, I moved into, so that MOS kind of went away. We became the 25 series. A lot of people hear of 25 Quebec, 25 November, Sierras, all those that more modern people in the military might know when they listen to this. Still the same thing. We're still kind of doing those FM radios because FM radios are still pretty prevalent inside of the military. So still nothing cybersecurity. Like some of my friends were what we called our 25 Foxes. They were our network people. They would set up things and they would patch people through them, like patch cables. Now we're talking about how old I feel now. But And that's what they did. But that still wasn't my thing. Like the closest I got to really diving them was like sitting in the back of a trailer, watching somebody hardline directly into a downlink for the military playing World of Warcraft. And this was probably like circa 2003-ish in the Army. Nothing cybersecurity. If we keep on kind of moving forward with my path through the military, I was like, I feel like I could do more. I supported a special forces unit while we were deployed once. And I was like, I don't know what those gentlemen are, but like, I want to do that. So I redeployed back and I went to selection, got selected, went to the Q course, got selected, went to the Q course, made it through that as an 18 Echo. That is a Special Forces Communications Sergeant. So I'm still doing radios. I wanted to be an 18 Delta, which is a medical sergeant. I've always been fascinated with that. But they thought, hey, you were a radio guy before, you'll be a great radio guy now. And I'm like, okay. So I'll be the best radio guy I can possibly be. And that was great. I loved it. We messed with radios, still zero cybersecurity. So now we're looking at, so I joined the Army in 2002. We're now looking like circa 2010, still no cybersecurity stuff have I ever really been introduced in. Fast forward, I found another area within side of Special Forces, which is called ASO, or Advanced Special Operations Tactics, so ASOT. Got to do a lot more cooler stuff. Now, this was all human related. For those that don't know, human is human intelligence. It is my absolute favorite thing in the entire world. There's a lot. If you look at all the different intelligence, if you look at SANS courses, you'll hear like SIGINT and OSINT. Of course, we have Matt Edmondson with his OSINT courses. Those are all phenomenal versions of intelligence. But I think human, to me, is so raw and unbridled. There's something that's so exciting about just talking to a person, because Google will tell me a lot. Like OSINT will tell us a lot, but that person down the street having a coffee and you just strike up a conversation is also going to tell me a whole lot if I'm just a pleasant person to talk to, and they won't even know what you're asking them. So I kind of moved in that realm. And that's when I really got the first dose, I guess you can say, or I dipped my toe into cybersecurity, because at that point, things were changing. If we go back to the Cold War era, like communications between handler and assets were very old school. If you go watch the movies, like the chalk marks, the dead drops, all those things were very kinetic. Times have changed. Now we're now looking mid 2010s, 2013, 14, 15. We had to find other ways that we can communicate. So I was like, well, if I'm going to like put a person's life on the line, I need to make sure that communication path that we're choosing is secure. So having the ability to learn about encryption or encrypted channels or things we can do on the back end of websites, or just random things like that, to where we can create that communication chain. But what we don't do is have linkage between me and another individual. So that was my first dose into it. And then I was like, yes, this is awesome. Also, somewhere I think in there, I installed Backtrack 3, and I thought I was by far the coolest person in the entire world. I couldn't do anything with it. I had no idea what it did, but I was like, you know what? I got this thing installed on a computer. I'm practically a hacker now. It's fine. I'll take all the credit. It's me. But I was slowly getting more enveloped in the world. Like I really enjoyed what that was. And this whole other side, honestly, on a global, on a war field, on a battlefield, everybody thinks of just, guns, tanks, people on the ground. But it's changed. Like there's the zeros and ones, that digital battlefield that nobody ever really thought about, which I think is it's crazy. I think what's interesting is a lot of people that we talk to now, their entry into this field is varied. Like it's not everybody was, help desk, and then they became an analyst, and then they moved into forensics or cloud or, offensive operations or anything like that. People are coming from so many backgrounds. And for me, I went from no training, nothing formulated, nothing official, to using it for communication purposes, and then quickly pivoting. It's like a 180-degree turn to, hey, you have great access and placement because of your position in the military. We don't have access to that because we have some very smart people all over the world that can do a lot of great things, but they have to get onto a network to be able to do all those great and amazing things. So I got to crawl through swamps in, locations that we won't talk about here, searching for access points, searching for networks to, cartels or other nefarious people, and getting access to those. And at that point, I still didn't know what I was doing. I thought it was super cool. Like, you want me to sit in a swampy mud puddle and then wait for somebody to attach themselves to a network so I can de-auth them and capture a packet? Like, what am I? Like, I was saying words and had no idea what I was even doing, but I knew what I was taught, and it was just it's phenomenal. It's exciting. The world's exciting, John.
You have a particularly exciting story. I know from there on, I mean, you've taken a lot of different training classes, right? And have some expertise in pretty diverse areas, even within cybersecurity, right? And not just across all of those stories, but just niching down right into cybersecurity. But the course you teach is 301. So with all the information that you kind of have rattling around in your head, what brought you to 301 as a kind of passion for teaching?
For those who don't know, 301 is Introduction to Cybersecurity. It's fundamentals for SANS. And it really is just a lot of content at a high level. So you understand things, and it builds a really, really great foundation. We use that analogy. I know people will smirk when they hear it, like building a house. You don't just kind of dust off the ground and start framing a home and put the home up there. Like, that's not what anybody does. Most people are going to put that foundation first because we want that really rock steady base that we can build upon these great skills. And that's what 301 does. It shows people, or it introduces people to things that should be at the forefront of what I will say is every organization's cybersecurity plan. When I looked at it, as you mentioned, that there's a lot of courses I've taken over that time span. Some really advanced, some not advanced, some on the leadership management side of the house, just kind of all sporadically over the place. For me, though, what always really shined for me with 301 are just the fundamentals. There's a lot of phenomenal advanced tools and doodads and gadgets that do a lot of great things. But if we implement all these things, bypassing those fundamentals, we're just like putting a Band-Aid over something. And then we want to blame the tool or the product when we might have been able to avoid that by doing something like a topic we cover a lot is principal of least privilege. For those who don't know what that is giving somebody the ability to do what they need to do and nothing more. So say Rich Greene gets hired at John's organization and I work in the warehouse. My access should be limited to just what I need to do my job, nothing else at all. John doesn't want to hire me to do a job and not give me access to do it. No, give him the bare minimum to make it happen and do his thing. What happens a lot, and I think a lot of organizations do a pretty good job at that first part. But what happens is, say Rich Greene does such a phenomenal job in the warehouse. We're like, promote Rich Greene, promote him tomorrow. Sweet. All this great fanfare. I get promoted. An email goes out. Congratulate Rich. He is now working in sales. All right. So they give me access to sales. But did they remove my access from the warehouse? Maybe not. They don't do a good job of turning off. They do a really good job of aiding and abetting like privilege creep, which is as I move through the process, because I'm at this organization for 20 years and now, I'm the VP of some amazing company. I have access to all of those things. What we didn't talk about is Rich also wants to win a $500 Amazon gift card. So when I see this email that says, hey, click this link, you've won, I'm super excited. I'm like, yeah, I get to go spend crazy money I didn't have at Amazon. Well, when I click that link, what we've done is now we've exposed that network. We've increased an attack surface to all the things that Rich Greene has access to. Instead of really going back to that base fundamental, which we teach day one, it's the opening thing we start with on 301. That very first fundamental, instead of just following that to the T and just only giving me the access to do my job as I go. No, well, now we have access to the warehouse and to sales and to maybe I spent time in R&D. Maybe somehow I wound up in accounting, and we've just opened the doors to everything. And that, for me, John, that's why I'm super passionate about 301 and just fun. I will preach all day long. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn just talking about basics, which is weird because I look at Steve Sims, who is a brilliant person of a man with his one bite off. And it's talking about crazy. high level things. And then, we look at, John Hammond or Network Chuck, always talking about these great things. And I'm like, those are phenomenal. But what about everything below that people are still messing up? Somebody gave me a funny quote today. He said, people are still getting bit by 1,000 mosquitoes while they look for one crocodile. And it's like, yeah, we keep doing the same thing. It's weak passwords. It's, permissions, misconfigurations, all these things that are at the very, very bottom. And that's what it is for me.
One of the things I always look for is kind of mental models in various topic areas that are not at all related to InfoSec, and say, like, what can I take from best practice over here and pull it into something and maybe learn or have it guide me in this other domain, right? Is there anything that you have used in your background, whether it's human or FM radios or otherwise, where you have used that as part of either teaching or learning in cybersecurity, where you think it's like a unique thing where you're like, I saw this piece of cybersecurity and I thought immediately of this other thing that I'd learned before, and it helped me understand, figure out, explain this concept, anything like that?
As weird as it might sound to say, I think I'd go toward the ability to simply communicate, John, I think is one of the most profound skills I've brought from outside of InfoSec into InfoSec. And some people are like, well, we're talking now. Like, I can talk all day long. Yes, having the ability to formulate and sound words is speaking. I don't know if it's necessarily communicating, though. When I think of communicating, I think, do I have the ability of taking this topic, which not everybody knows about, and getting the message across to them in a way that they understand? I think that is the key to communication, right? Can we take InfoSec, or can we take, if I was to walk up to anybody on the C-suite or on the board of an organization and start rambling off about principal least privilege and patch management and backup recovery plans, there's a good chance they have no idea kind of what I'm talking about. But if I can find a way to take those concepts that we know about, put them in a business sense, right? How does that relate to the business? What does that mean for the business? Well, my chances are increased. And this is the same. I mean, having the ability to communicate is exponentially strong at the base level of whatever you're doing, all the way to the toppest tiers of whatever you strive to become. If you're a manager of a team and your team comes to you and says, hey, we have a way to solve our backup recovery plan. We think this will be a great way to do it. They give you this great plan. As a manager, it should be my responsibility to then formulate that, what is probably a pretty technical plan, and mold that into a business case so I can present that, to the CISO or the CTO or to the board or whoever the case may be, to win that. My inability to communicate now puts a detriment to my team because I wasn't able to accomplish that. And it's the same thing with teaching. I think teaching and people also come down with being an instructor or being a teacher. And I think for me, those are two very different things. And what do I mean by that one is, when I was going through the military, we have a 2-week instructor training course. It's called ITC, or it was back then. You go to this course for 2 weeks. They teach you how to become an instructor. Not a teacher, but to become an instructor. That means taking information and then giving it to a group of people so that they absorb it. And that's kind of your goal. But I think being a teacher is different. You're imparting knowledge that you hope is deep-seated and set inside of somebody's brain. If you think about it, when we refer to our, for my child, when my child goes to school, they don't have instructors. They have teachers. Instructors, I think, are used in a very academia-based, which is fine. And I think that's what separates SANS instructors. I don't even really, to me, they're teachers, because they take concepts that for a lot of people is hard to grasp, very high level, very technical, and they take it and they mold it, they build it inside stories, right? They link it to, least common denominator, so the information actually rests with the person. It's easy for me to walk up and click slides, read slide, yada, 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 click, read slide, yada, yada. Anybody can do that. I think anybody can be an instructor. I think being a teacher is a whole other And again, we didn't talk about that, but like my overall passion, like Rich Greene will be a middle school teacher at some point in his life. I know that for a fact because that's what I want to do.
Awesome. The skills you learned in the human intelligence part of your career, did that give you any kind of particular way of like reading people as a teacher and saying like, oh, this is they're getting it or they're not getting it, or kind of any tips you can give around like if someone's in this position, like how you can look behind like what someone's saying, oh yeah, I get it, and like, do they really get it?
No, and I can definitely say I've probably used that a lot in my time because you need to like being perceptive. In the military, we say it a lot, and it's probably a common term, like situational awareness, like knowing your audience, reading the room. I think people just say those words because they're buzzwords, but I think like truly understanding what those, like, not what those are, but how to take those is pretty paramount. So on the human side, having that ability to read the room and read people is huge on the fact that if I'm in a country, we'll say country X, and I need to meet with an asset, my ability to quickly process what's going on around me is strong. Is it safe? Do I feel it safe? Have I noticed, so now I'm running into counter surveillance. Did I notice anything like that? Because again, my whole goal is to protect not only myself, but my asset. So being able to quickly pick up on all of that data, that kinetic data from humans that you see physically is big. And then we come over to the classroom. We'll use the classroom environment, being able to actually see students as you're teaching. And then you can go over that, we used to joke about it, but you talk about, a student's eyes glazing over. And it's like, at that point, okay, either they're spent, the topic was just too high. Maybe I need to bring it back a little bit. Also, having the ability to just ask those questions. Like a lot of people, I think, I'll say they're scared to ask that question. Does everybody understand? Because I think what happens then is nobody wants to raise their hand in a classroom and be like, oh, I don't really know it. Because then, that fear that the students have. But you can see it if you can ask that question and just look for a subtle twitch, like in somebody, right? Maybe they don't want to answer. Maybe they look around really quick and it's like, okay, you know what? I don't need to identify you specifically, but thank you. I know I need to come back on that topic and maybe explain it in a different way. Maybe I need to add a story with that topic to really make it cement and make it kind of go down. So yes, having the ability to read people is a strong one.
I think where this connects potentially to what we were just talking about, the fundamentals piece, is I've heard story after story of security professionals who in their org are trying to push the right thing to make things safer, and people won't hear it, they don't believe in it or whatever. And certainly communication is part of that. And persuasion is another piece of that as well. Any thoughts, stories, or other things you could relay about trying to or how to convince someone of something that they're initially kind of like resistant to?
We will give a story, and I'll give a story, and then who knows, maybe I get shackled up and somebody takes me off in handcuffs at some point after the fact. But we'll look at it from this way. And I think if I convey it this way and I bring the story back into Infosec, it'll make sense. When I was first looking at coming on with SANS, the individual I was talking with was Tim Butler. And at that point, the role was a solutions engineer. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, Tim. He sent me the job rec and I read over it. And I was like, sales. And I'm like, I am not a salesperson, Tim. Like, I am not a salesperson at all. I've never sold a single thing whatsoever. And I was like, but I have convinced human beings to may or may not use treason against their country. So if you need me to have the ability to speak to somebody and persuade them, I think I can do that. His response was, you know what? I think we'll take a chance on you. Yeah, come on over and join us at SANS. It's the same thing. And we go back to the story I mentioned earlier about having, the process for the patch management, or not patch management, but the backup recovery. If I need to get my plan up and running for my team, I need to know, number one, who I'm talking about. And I'll name drop this course because I have recommended to every single human being I've talked to that's like, what course should I take at SANS? Leadership 514 by Frank Kim has a module in there, which is all about stakeholder management. To me, that one block is one of the most single important blocks of information anybody, especially on the sales side, or anybody that has to have the ability to convey and convince an organization or person to do something, to go with. You got to know who you're talking to. If I need to get a project bought off on, I can provide the data, and the data is great for us. The data is great for technical people. They want to see, if we're going to implement this, it's going to have this ROI. They want to see that. But if I'm looking at a business perspective, I need to take that same business plan that I have and that my team has and not twist it, but mold it in a way that achieves the person I'm trying to convince or persuade that it goes along with that business continuity. If they don't understand, if they can't put the dots together, and that this thing here equates to better revenue, faster, anything, bigger, stronger, faster, I'm going to have a hard time getting my plan in motion. It's communication. Yeah, it's fundamentals and communication. Walk away. When you get done listening to this, if you walk away with those two things, you're going to be a rock star, whatever you're doing.
Let's peel that onion one layer further. So communication, important. Persuasion is one of the things we do with communication. Persuasion often needs to align, especially with stakeholder management, to understanding what someone's motivations and incentives are. How do you look at one of those stakeholders and try to determine what is the factor that's going to convince them and get them to want to move?
Every operation I've ever done on the military side, it wasn't a rash decision. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go do this and run and do it. It takes work. There's a lot of preamble, a lot of pre-work that goes on. We'll use reconnaissance would be the word that we'd use in this case, right? I know that if I need to convince the CFO or the people that control the dollars what's going on, then I need to spend that time up front doing my own personal recon to see what exactly are their goals, what is their pain points, what makes them happy or will make them happy. And this would change. If I have to get this plan bought off by the CFO or the CTO or the CISO or anybody above me, every single one of their idea of what success looks like is going to be slightly different. So if I need to give the plan 5 different times to 5 different people, that's the work I have to put in. It's not a one size fits all. I need to understand exactly what, the CFO wants to see. How does my business plan, how will the thing that we're trying to implement give him success compared to give another individual success? And it all comes down to that reconnaissance. I'm not going to say OSINT. I mean, you could do OSINT. You can always walk in there and be like, hey, I'm also a Dodgers fan. You're a Dodgers fan. That always helps, building rapport. Rapport is always a strong one. If there's that whole saying, you get, what is it? You can attract more bees with honey or sugar or something like that. Yeah. But it's one of those. I mean, I'll keep it PG because, this is your professional podcast, but it's just be a good person. Don't be a thorn in everybody's side. Like if you just go in there, bull in the china shop and kicking everything over and shouting proverbially and having, harsh emails, and you kind of want to dominate, like show your dominance, be like, no, this is what we need to do. It's not worth it. Like pick and choose your battles, figure out what hill you're going to die on. And then overall, just come back, look at the plan, change your plan, mold it, build a rapport, know who you're going to talk to, and then make sure that your objective has to match their objective. If your objective doesn't match their objective, they're not going to see it anyway, and you'll be successful.
That's a really solid strategy for like working your way through what the average security person is going to have to do, right? There's a whole lot of convincing. It's always, we need to turn on this feature. Well, that's going to break this. That's going to get in my way. That's going to slow me down. And sometimes that's totally legitimate, right? And you have to work your way around that. Other times people have this perceived, like, oh, it's going to be a disaster, and it's not going to be a disaster at all. And you have to kind of work with them to realize like, hey, no, look, this is going to be better for both of us, and kind of talk them into those sort of things and show them what's best for them. Yeah, it's a problem that everyone runs into.
Absolutely.
Back to the teaching stuff. So going through instructor development for SANS, is there any kind of unexpected things you've picked up along the way, working with people in the classroom, teaching people who are fairly new? I'm assuming most of the 301 takers are early cyber career professionals in the realm of persuasion, communication, or other kind of big light bulb moments from you just teaching in the classroom?
I think for me, what has been an eye-opening experience through the process is especially the transition from being an instructor for the military. What I don't want to say what you can get away with. The flow of the classroom is different, if that makes sense. Like not what you can get away with, but just the ambiance of the room is different. It just flows differently. There's a lot more. It's a lot more loose. For me, transitioning to the civilian side, for the SAN side of the house, number one, you have people that are paying to be here. So the Army, you're told to go, way different. In the civilian side, SAN's like people are paying money to sit there. So that changes things a lot. Luckily, I'm good at communicating and talking to people, so it wasn't a huge change, but it does change a lot. It just changes the way you present, the way you deliver, the way you give that content changes. But what I love about it so much is the ability I get to have of that very personal interaction with somebody, especially like you said for 301. 301, it's been a wide range of the type of people I've had at 301 so far since I've been teaching it. I've had a lady who was 50-ish, 55 years, mid-50s, never had a job in her entire life. She was empty nester and was like, I want to get into cybersecurity. And she was in 301. And I'm like, this is awesome. We can do some great things here. I've had somebody from the Department of Homeland Security at 301. And it's like, okay, I feel yeah, we can make this happen. Well, so it's always a wide. I had an 8-year masseuse 2 classes ago, and he wanted to get into cybersecurity. And so you had that chance. But what I love is, for me, they come there with they might have a preconceived notion about cybersecurity and the domains and what the environment's like and what it's going to be like. But being able to be the person up in front of them and invite them in to Infosec and just give them a warm smile and a face and like a human connection has been for me so humbling, powerful. I can't even find the word that I would want to say to what it gives to me. But every single chance I have to just like get in front of students and just talk again, the fundamentals, it's great. And what I'm hoping is that I just beat down fundamentals so much on their brains for 5 days that when they go off into InfoSec, they're like, yeah, we need to do these fundamentals. On a startup, on a small organization, doing a lot of those fundamentals is easy, right? Your attack surface is small, your network is small, you have 5 employees, you have 10, 15 employees. Like, that's easy to manage. When you have a Fortune 100 company that has, thousands of employees and thousands of assets in their networks, yeah, I can understand like looking at fundamentals is tougher. But if they would have done it at the beginning, it might not have been so bad. But it's things like that. I mean, we can go through. I'll be giving a talk at ISACA in Greater Washington, really just about going back to the basics. And we use things. We talk about like WannaCry. We talk about target breach. If you look at the fundamental root of all of those, John, it wasn't some crazy elaborate target towards them. It was a target of opportunity almost. Those target of opportunities are usually going to be around the fundamentals. It's going to be, again, patch management issues. It's going to be privilege or permissions issues. It's going to be password things that we've been talking about forever that are still plaguing us in almost 2025.
RDP left on the internet, things like that. Always.
One of the craziest things for me, and this is, I love this look on individuals in class. The first time I show the students in 301, like Shodan, their eyes are like, wait, what's going on here? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know what? Maybe your MySQL server needs to be public facing. I wouldn't want mine public facing, but maybe they need theirs for some reason. But they're showing them things like that. It's like they just never, or showing them the dark web for the first time. They're like, am I going to go to jail for this? I'm like, no, you're not going to go to jail for going to the dark web. I was like, you need to be really, really cautious, and maybe you don't need to go to the dark web. But like, I'll walk you through it so you can see that it's not all doom and gloom. Like, there's some really good pros that come out of the dark web. So it's just watching those eyes, those light bulbs for them click is just, it's wild.
On the communication side, one thing I think you're really good at is doing this, spreading of kind of the gospel of fundamentals. You're awesome at that kind of stuff. What did you do to become more comfortable, maybe in the classroom, online, making videos, all that sort of stuff? Because you're a perfect example of someone who seems totally natural, totally unfazed or worried about being on camera or on mic or anything.
So this was a question I got asked too. I think like the first time I got asked, it's like 2 weeks ago, prior to network security, because I was going to do this whole new thing in network security, the whole SANS social reporter. And I was talking to them. They're like, do you have any training for this? I was like, I have zero training whatsoever. I just enjoy it. It wasn't always that way for me though. Like if we go back to when I was like a teenager and like a young adult, I hated being on camera. Like I hated talking to people. I had to get better at it. Like mainly for my job in the military, like you have to get better at speaking to humans if you want to be inhuman. So I had to get better. As far as being on camera, again, I always come back to the story. When we kick off 301, the very first thing we do is I introduce myself when we start 301 class for the first day. And then I tell everybody, I'm like, look, you probably weren't expecting this, but we're about to turn this into like a mini Toastmasters. And for those that don't know what Toastmasters is, it's like this giant conglomerate that really is just about public speaking. Because again, they realize how important communication is. So the only way to get better at communicating is to communicate. So we start in 301 and I'm like, I'll pass you the mic. I'm not going to force you to say anything because this is not that kind of environment. But if you'd like to, please stand up, kind of explain who you are, where you're from, your expectations, just so we can build that personal relationship in class, right? I'm huge on a safe space in class, no wrong answers. I want everybody to feel super comfortable. So we just talk. So I kind of start forcing them because who would have thought Infosec people tend to be kind of introverted? Hey, you know what? It's a thing. I'm pretty sure it's like an epidemic inside of Infosec world. So I try to start then, like get comfortable with it. Same thing with the video, with being on camera. You're only going to get better by constantly putting yourself on camera and just talking. If you want to do it, you're like, I want to be a content creator, but you don't want to be on camera. It's going to be a very difficult like transition for you to make because it has to be there at all times. It's one of the biggest ones is just the best way to get better at communicating, being comfortable on the camera, being comfortable on the microphone is just putting yourself in the environment where you're going to have to do it. And understand it's not going to be great when you first start. It's not. I know for me, I did the whole thing where you talk about a topic, you find a topic you're super passionate about and you record yourself giving the talk for 5 minutes. And then you listen back to that talk and you listen first, you just listen and you make corrections like, oh, I used the word 75 times, or I used an or whatever that word is that somebody's attached to. I use this too many times. And then you go back, and that's for the auditory, and you go back and you watch the same video. And then you look for things that you do there. Do you fidget? Do you use your hands a lot? Using your hands is good, but if you're just sitting there waving your hands around for 45 minutes, it's super distracting to somebody. But it's just putting yourself into situations over and over and over and over and over again. And then eventually it's like, I can do this all day.
Yep, I went through the same journey. My first YouTube videos I made in 2020, and I look back at those compared to what I can do now, and I'm kind of like, oh God. But like, I'm happy I did it, right? Your first stuff is always your worst stuff when you're learning any skill. That's what it is. And what I've found from doing this podcast, doing videos and things like that, it's been a huge kind of door opener.
Yeah.
What have you found have been the benefits of being willing to go out there and do this kind of communication, especially the online, like content creation type stuff?
I got a message the other day from somebody, and people will say how they went on TikTok and they hate it or whatever, but somebody messaged me on TikTok and they're like, hey, I didn't know this about password managers. We had a long conversation on that. And they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to start using a password manager. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like for me, that's a success. And a couple of my friends said, if you go online right now and you were to scroll through whatever your short form entertainment choice is, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikToks, whatever you want to use, what you don't see a lot, John, is InfoSec material.
Yeah.
You just don't see it a lot.
True.
You see trends, you see dances, you see pranks, you see a lot of stuff, but you don't see a lot of InfoSec stuff. And that's what I have slowly been trying to start doing, because if I am so passionate about fundamentals, I know that a large group of individuals look at that content on a daily basis. Infosec world or not, I can slowly, hopefully, start influencing people to make better choices. I've given videos on password managers and how to identify social engineering and, public Wi-Fi and just all these things that general people should just know about. And I've loved it. And people have been like, oh, this is awesome. Granted, I'm competing against craziness, but hey, you know what? For me, and the other, I'll say this back to what you asked earlier, like how do you get better? And like you said with your first YouTube videos, when I make content, if I get one view, I'm gonna get one view because I'm gonna view my own stuff. Like for me, I make all my content is really for me. If anybody else gets something out of it, like that is awesome. But I don't concern myself with, oh, I only have 500 views. I'm just going to keep on making content. If it has one view or if it has 17,000 views or 1,000,000 views, I'm just going to keep on doing it. Number one, I'm going to get better at doing it. And number two, somebody out there like that individual I convinced to use a password manager, like I made a difference in one person's world that probably never would have used a password manager ever. It's like, you know what? You're now going to be better off in life because of that.
Is there since I think this episode is clearly going to be something that's targeted towards some of the newer folks out there, any kind of words of advice for people based on your own career that's going to help lead them towards whatever they define as success for them? What have been like the core principles that you followed that you think have helped you along and brought you to where you are?
Core principles for me that I have used myself and what I think would be great for anybody that kind of stumbles upon this and listens to it and is like, you know what, I think I want to go towards the InfoSec world. Number one is we use this term a lot on the military side, is don't self-select yourself. What that means is don't think you don't have the ability to do what that person does. So, in instance, if somebody's like on X and they stumble across Steve Sims and they're like, I can't do that. Like, don't put yourself in that mindset. Steve has tons of years of experience. Like, don't let that dissuade you from pursuing a career in InfoSec. And that's for everybody, not even Steve. Like, if at any point in your career, you're like, you know what, I want to make that change. I find it very interesting. Go for it. Dive in. Like, embrace it and just understand, like, that's what it's going to be. With that, understand the layers. Talk to people. Ask questions. I think it comes back to the communication part. I think nowadays people, I don't say they're scared to reach out to individuals, but there's hesitation for people sometimes to bridge that gap and just ask questions for fear of being ignored or not getting the answer they want, whatever the case may be. But ask those questions. One of the biggest things we get it's in 301 is, where do I go next? Understanding that part is paramount because there's as well as I do, there's so many different places somebody can find themselves in InfoSec. You can be on the cyber defense side. You can be in offensive operations. You can be in DFIR or forensics or incident response. You can be anywhere. And if you try to go to everywhere at once, it's going to be super overwhelming. Like, that's not going to be super successful. So I usually not convince. I tell people, like, read, look, find somebody that online that you look up to. You're like, I really enjoy what they're doing, and reach out. Even if they can't help you, maybe they're too busy, they might put you in contact with somebody that can. And make sure you understand that plan and then just kind of go for it. Don't be afraid to fail at all. Like, failure is inevitable. Like, I have never met a single person who's not failed at something in their life. Like, I'm saying they might be out there. I just not have personally seen them in almost 42 years. But it's InfoSec is, you read right now, there's nobody get jobs. The workforce is scary. There's layoffs, unfortunately. But it's accessible. I think in today's age, our area is so accessible to so many people. You just have to really want it and then go after it.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Well, we've got the importance of communication. We've got following learning and enacting the fundamentals. Yes. Persuasion, understanding motivations of people to get things done. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Have fun. Honestly, for everybody, again, I told you if there was two things you walked away with, I would consider the success, communication and fundamentals. But quite honestly, have fun. If at any point during that journey, you're like, it's causing you like physical anguish, like figure out something else like that this is not apparently going to be it. If you do not enjoy it, it's going to make that climb just so much more difficult. So have fun above all things. Again, it's another thing I tell everybody at 301. Like when I'm done teaching for the day, like close the book, close the laptops, like go decompress and have fun and come back and we'll learn some more the next day. Just enjoy yourself. Life is finite.
That's a great piece of closing advice, and it actually matches exactly what Seth said at the end of his interview as well. So I love that the same themes keep showing up from people. Yeah, finding a way to have fun, right? I watched a YouTube video recently from a guy named Ali Abdal, and like in one of his videos, he said, "Think if you're struggling your way through something, like what would this look like if it were fun?" And I've thought of that a couple of times doing some tasks that I was not enjoying. I'm like, I could probably actually make this a little more pleasant, right? And so, and then the advice keeps popping up now over and over. It's like one of those things, right? You hear it once and then it just keeps showing up.
Absolutely. You have to, like I said, like life is too short. If you're not enjoying it, it's not good. Don't do that.
All right. We will end it there then. Thank you so much, Rich, for being on Blueprint.
Thank you so much, John. I have loved it.
All right. Catch you later.
Later.
All right, that wraps it up for this episode. We heard about some of Rich's amazing past and how that led him to key insights on the importance of communication, the art of persuasion, and being comfortable in front of a classroom and camera. He stressed how mastering communication is not just about talking, but about building a connection and making sure your message is conveyed effectively and framed with an understanding of your audience's motivations. That can make or break your efforts in influencing decisions, and that's the whole point, right? Finally, whether it's in a classroom or online, pushing through the awkwardness and being willing to put yourself out there in uncomfortable situations can lead to massive personal and professional growth. So of course, if you see any of those opportunities, you should absolutely be evaluating those as well. A fun personal side note, if you see Rich in the classroom or otherwise, congratulate him because he's recently reached a very important milestone at SANS, being promoted to the rank of SANS Certified Instructor. It's a big deal to us at SANS and something he's worked hard for, as he's briefly mentioned during this episode. Going through a rigorous instructor development process is not easy. I can tell you from experience, it took me 3 years to do it. So a big and personal congratulations to Rich for that achievement, and we're glad to have him officially on the SANS instructor team. If traveling around the world and talking to classrooms full of cybersecurity professionals and helping them on their career journey sounds appealing to you, here's how to become a SANS instructor. Check out sans.org/teach. Our course catalog is constantly growing and adapting, and we're always on the lookout for top talent and people who want to get out there and help us secure the networks and data of the world. So with that, we're at the end. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Blueprint.